This week on Arts District, the artist Christo on his work proposed for Colorado and beyond. Do you think that the project will eventually become realized?
I cannot mention, of course I like to be realized, but I cannot be created the necessary inflammation on public television. That will happen because I should be polite.
How a bit of daring changed a screen printmaker's work.
I keep hearing that you need to have a lot of courage in order to take a good-looking piece of art and then cut it up.
Inside the imagination of a Boulder-based artist.
I'm not the kind of artist who, like a portrait painter or somebody who, picks something. They're a ceramic artist and that's what they're going to do. They're going to be making ceramics for their whole life. That's not who I am as an artist. I have love affairs with materials.
And a museum honoring the lives of those killed during the Holocaust.
And she said, there's so much you could do with the dresses. I said, like what? She said, well, make them.
That's all next on Arts District. This is Arts District, and I'm your host, Carrie Saldo. Whether wrapping the German parliament in 1 million square feet of fabric, wending 7,500 saffron-colored gates through New York City Central Park, or proposing to drape sections of the Arkansas River in Colorado with a silvery material, internationally known artists Christo and his late wife Jean-Claude are known for their monumental, temporary works of art. Controversial for some, coveted by others, their work tends to keep people talking years after the art has gone. During a visit to Denver, Christo spoke with us about that and more.
All that will be fabric. All that. There will be fabric, and the fabric running now. Running all around, all that.
At least, that is the artist Christo's hope. He wants sections of the Arkansas River in Colorado to be the site of a large-scale temporary installation called Over the River. Initially proposed in 1992, Over the River has local, state, and federal approval. But a group called Rags Over the Arkansas River has challenged those permits in court, contending the government violated its own management plan and environmental protections when it issued the permits. Rohr's case against the Bureau of Land Management is before the U.S. Court of Appeals in Denver. Do you think that the project will eventually become realized?
I cannot mention, of course I like to be realized, but I cannot be created the necessary inflammation on public television. That will happen because I should be polite.
Christo is no stranger to adversity. During his more than 50-year career, various communities have rejected works he proposed with his late wife Jean-Claude. Other projects, like the gates installed in New York City in 2005, took decades to gain approval. For you, the challenges that you face with either people opposing the project or the length of time that it sometimes takes for a project to be realized, the expense, what's the gratifying part of this for you?
It's the life, the span, the living is so gratifying. To meet so many people, make so many friends, to see so many different things, is so enriching, it's so invigorating, it's never regretting. It's the very part of the incredible journey. It's not boring at all, no. It's very exciting and I enjoy that. Of course, somebody thinks it's terrible nightmare.
The realities that you present in your artwork are so fantastical. I'm curious to ask you, do you dream? What are your dreams like?
Apparently everybody dreams, but I don't remember my dreams. I sleep so well, knock on the wood, but I need to sleep naked.
Is that part of the creative process?
I cannot sleep on airplanes because I hate my clothes.
So I read on your website that you tend to work 14 hours a day.
Yeah.
Do not take vacations.
No vacation. I have no stool in my studio.
You're standing the whole time.
Standing on that.
You're 80 years young, but how are you maintaining this pace?
No, because I love to, I don't like to sit. I love to walk around. I like to move around. I like to see things, touch things. We have an incredible life,
His work ethic has facilitated that incredible life. Christo does not accept grants or corporate sponsorships. Instead, the massive, often multi-million-dollar temporary installations are funded by the sale of Christo's other artwork. But Christo pointed out the work is not created in a vacuum.
And probably this is also the things Jean-Claude and myself would like very much, is not isolated idea of artists in a studio painting things, It's a huge sharing process of angst and this pleasure of design.
It's highly
and,
collaborative.
Yeah, a lot of things and a lot of many things. But I like that. Many people hate that probably, but I enjoy that.
Christo is working on 2 other projects. The massive mastaba proposed for an area south of Abu Dhabi, and the floating piers, slated for installation on Italy's Lake Iseo in summer 2016. The floating piers will be his first large-scale work since the Gates, and his first without Jean-Claude.
We missing all the time. She was very critical. She was absolutely argumentative and very demanding, and we're fighting, and we're screaming at each other, insulting each other, arguing, you stupid, you don't understand, it should be that way or that way. And probably that is the thing I miss more all the time. I mean, when you have problems, I ask my nephew Vladimir or Jean-Claude's nephew Jonathan, who work in the studio, always what Jean-Claude we think now.
With Jean-Claude in mind, Christo's work continues.
The work of art is not the things. This is why the software period, the hardware period, when the work exists only in the mind of the people, and finally the real thing, all that together is the work of art. This is why this work carries that energy, that excitement, that discovery, that is not the routine, not like building another skyscraper, another bridge, or another house. They're all different things. And that adventure, that incredible journey is the work of art.
You can see more local stories on our website, rmpbs.org/artsdistrict. All right, time for this week's arts quiz. In September 2008, excavations in a German cave uncovered a female sculpture from the Paleolithic era. What was her name? Was it A, Venus of Galgenberg, B, Venus of Hohlfels, C, Venus of Potsdam? Dig around to see what you decide. The answer later in the show. Printmaker Lou Stovall has lived and worked in Washington, D.C. since the early 1960s. Then and now, it's his interaction with the community and nature that inspires his work. He sat down with WETA and shared at 78 what drives him to keep creating.
I arrived in Washington, D.C. in 1962 and found that it was just a wonderful place.
Lou Stovall is a passionate and prolific printmaker who has called the district his home since he arrived to study art at Howard University.
There was something welcoming about the environment, the atmosphere. And I decided after the second day that I would stay here.
As the civil rights movement grew in the early 60s, Lou found his skills as a poster maker in high demand.
Making the civil rights posters, saw myself as kind of a street artist. Made the posters as fast as I could because whoever was asking for them wanted them because they wanted to be out on the street with them. When those posters were done, they were done. We didn't save them.
Lou's artistic inspiration has always been rooted in organic forms.
Growing up in Springfield, Massachusetts, before I came to Washington, I had this total love of landscape and trees and that kind of thing. And I never really liked drawing people because I'm primarily a nature person. The trees in DC really turned me on, in addition to all kinds of architecture around Washington.
In 1968, Lou decided to turn his workshop into a collaborative learning environment for the community.
Well, for a long time, one of the things that I did was open my studio to anyone who wanted to work with silkscreen printmaking. I had a relationship with the Corcoran Gallery where students could come and learn how to make silkscreen prints. And all the people who wanted to come and learn silkscreen from me, the trade-off was you had to teach a kid. So whatever students wanted to learn, there was some adult artist there to teach them.
printmaking is a time-intensive process that often yields unexpected results.
And it's just a matter of running color and seeing how it looks. And then when it dries, I'll either add to it or I can probably delete some of it, by scraping it off. It's just free expression, that's all. The beauty of working the way that I work is that I never know what I'm going to come up with. So when it's abstract, it's the discovery that's most important.
Lou has experimented with a number of media throughout his career and has recently been developing a series of abstract three-dimensional pieces.
Over the years, the changes that I've had where art was concerned was going from representation to abstraction. And I much prefer the abstraction. And I found myself going back and forth to the abstract images over a period of time until I finally went totally abstract. I keep hearing that you need to have a lot of courage in order to take a good-looking piece of art and then cut it up. And I thought, I've got a lot of courage. I can do that. So I started cutting the prints up, but I'm also kind of a formalist. So I made sure that everything was in square and cut consistently. I try to make everything beautiful and challenging. So I'm always hoping that when someone sees something of mine that I've done, that they'll want more, but also that it'll inspire them to do some of their own.
Need more inspiration? Head to our website, rmpbs.org/artsdistrict. There you'll find complete shows and individual stories. And when you find something you like, be sure to share that link with your friends. Boulder-based artist Rebecca DiDimenico said she casts the net of her imagination wide. Her work is not defined by a particular media. She's created drawings, sculptures, prints, and crowns. She spoke with producer Leslie Dodson about her installation work.
I'm Rebecca DiDimenico, and I'm sitting inside of one of my installations. It is a cave made of mica and butterfly wings and trash. It's a walk-in cave. It's called pellucid, which means beyond light, or kind of, sometimes people use it to describe the sky. So like a very clear sky is called a pellucid sky. But it also has a little bit of a kind of a spiritual notion to it, sort of like when you see something that is really moving and you feel like it's even more lit up than normal. It's made with these scales that are mica, and then they have sandwiched in between them either butterfly wings or bits of trash, all different colors. And there are 60,000 pieces, and they're sewn all on a sewing machine, all in rows. Some of the concepts that I was dealing with was the idea of fields of color. And so my first idea was to make it all with the mica and the butterfly wings. And the mica kind of acted as this protective agent to, how like when you try to save a butterfly wing and it turns to dust. And so the mica was a way to sort of protect the butterfly wing so it doesn't turn to dust. But then I realized, oh, I need something else besides the butterfly wings, not to make the whole cave out of just mica and butterfly wings. The same way that the butterfly wings are very ephemeral and they don't last and everyone thinks butterfly wings are beautiful, I thought I'm going to have something the opposite of that. So I used trash. Mostly it's plastic trash. So it's kind of like this material that we're stuck with now. It's ubiquitous. You can't ever get rid of it. Most people try to get rid of it. Most people think it's ugly. And yet it comes in all these really bright colors. These, you can really tell the difference between the trash, the plastic, and the butterfly wings in certain areas where they meet. And the colors, One of the things that happened when I was making it is I realized there are no more pink butterflies in the world. So if I wanted that color, which I wanted the whole cave to encompass all the colors, then the pink would have to be the trash. The morpho butterflies are the blue ones. Well, all the stalactites and the stalagmites, one of the things that I was going to talk about was how I used molds from cypress knees. So this is a cypress knee, and if you don't know what that is, it's a root of a tree that grows in the swamps in the south. I covered them with plaster bandages, and then when they dried, I cut the plaster bandage off and then reformed them again. And then I put mica dust and flakes of mica dust and other mineral dust that I put in a blender. So I had this blender and I would put these kind of flakes of mica in there and grind them all up. I'm not the kind of artist who, like a portrait painter or somebody who, picks something. They're a ceramic artist and that's what they're going to do. They're going to be making ceramics for their whole life. That's not who I am as an artist. I have love affairs with materials. I was asked to do this show on maps, and I had made some other work with maps before, but never anything on this scale. And I just started thinking about, the fact that they're flat, that it's like a flat depiction of something, the land and the way the land moves. I'm making all these pieces out of places that exist already. And I thought, what about places that exist in your imagination? So then I started inventing my own maps. I think there is something to be said for living artfully or making your life an art form. And what effect does that have on you, on your inner life and your actual life, the life that you choose to lead? I think that's an art form.
It's time for the answer to this week's arts quiz, but first, a quick review of the question. In September 2008, excavations in a German cave uncovered a female sculpture from the Paleolithic era. What was her name? Was it A, Venus of Galgenberg, B, Venus of Hohlfels, C, Venus of Potsdam? The answer, B, Venus of Hohlfels. Named for the cave where it was found, the object is dated from between 35,000 and 40,000 years ago, making it one of the oldest known examples of figurative art. The sculpture is so small, it could fit inside your fist. Paul and Hedy Strnad were among the millions of Jews facing death under the German occupation of Europe during World War II. The couple unsuccessfully tried to secure work as clothing designers in the United States. The Strnad's tragic story inspired the exhibit Stitching History from the Holocaust. And as we learned from WMVS in Milwaukee, it's meant as a testament to the incalculable loss of the Holocaust.
December 11th, 1939. Dear Elvin, I received your last letter and thank you very much for your kind care. I was very glad to hear that you are troubling to get an affidavit of necessity for my wife as a dress designer. Would you be so kind as to let me know if you have any success in this matter? You may imagine that we have a great interest of leaving Europe as soon as possible because there is no possibility of getting a position in this country. By separate mail, I have sent you some dress designs my wife made. I hope the dress manufacturer you mentioned in your letter will like them. Hoping to hear very soon from you, I remain with kind regards to you and your wife and with the best wishes for the new year. Yours sincerely, Paul.
Stitching History from the Holocaust is really a look at two different things. It's a very individual look at a specific couple and a specific family, but on a much larger scale, it addresses the huge void of talent, the loss of contributions to the world that were never able to be brought to fruition because of everyone that perished in the Holocaust and all of the hopes and dreams that perished along with them.
This exhibit takes 8 dress designs that were sent to Milwaukee in 1939 from a couple in Prague, Hedwig Strnad and her husband Paul, to a Milwaukee cousin in the hopes of getting immigration visas. The letters have been in the collection of the museum since before it was a museum. They were given to the Milwaukee Jewish Archives in 1997 by Burton Stranad, who was cleaning out his mother's basement and found them. He had no idea that his father had had this correspondence. His father is Alvin, who is the recipient of these letters.
And within the envelope was a red envelope, and within the red envelope were 8 dress designs, a picture of the woman and her husband, and a letter to Bert Stranad's father. And in that letter, they were seeking help in coming to America to escape the Nazis in Prague.
Paul Stranad in Prague knew that Alvin was trying to help him come to America with his wife, and he enclosed these sketches in the hopes that that would convince people in the United States that they would not be a burden on the economy.
Burton Stranad turned them over to the archives, never knowing, would they be on display. He just knew that they would be preserved.
And when the museum was installed in 2008, it became a focal point of our Holocaust section.
Well, one of our visitors came in, and when she came to this section, she said, oh my God, and the story is so poignant. And she said, there's so much you could do with the dresses. I said, like what? She said, well, make them.
And that was the first time we kind of had this sense of the story, that you could have this kind of tangible focus on loss and filling that void in some way to help us, kind of fill in the blanks of who Hedvig and Paul were and what the larger meaning of this story is.
Director Kathy Bernstein approached the Milwaukee Repertory Theater and spoke with the costume department.
Our shop manager from last season was contacted by the museum about this project, and after she saw the drawings, she was so excited about the project that she said, we're in.
We received copies of the renderings, and then as project manager on this, I did a bunch of research into the period fashions, using period catalogs, magazines.
We gather all of our research, and then it's time to create patterns. We take fabric, cheap muslin, and we actually drape it on the form to create the patterns. We then cut out the pattern out of an inexpensive fabric. We make a mock-up of the fabric so that we can correct all the problems in the pattern without having to cut it into the real fabric.
The draper hands off the patterns to us once they're ready, and we cut out the fabric, and then we hand off the fabric pieces, the garment pieces, to the stitchers to assemble them.
The tailoring techniques we're using are old standard techniques that they would have used back in the 30s that actually we still use today.
There was quite a bit of hand stitching, especially with the tailoring. The pad stitching and the bound buttonholes are all done by hand.
All the dresses are made of natural fibers and fabrics that we would have found in the time period, in the 30s. The only synthetic that I can think that we're using is the thread that holds them together. But Jessica has tried very, very hard to be as faithful to the period as we can.
3 of the looks have printed fabrics in them, and we obviously couldn't source those exact prints, so we had to find somebody to create them.
Margaret Hassett Guy has recreated the prints that Hedvig drew in her drawings. What's really unique about these is you can see the direct correlation between the surrealist movement in art and the prints. And Margaret went beyond Hedvig's designs, and she did research on her own and researched textiles of the period and art of the period and really brought an authenticity to it.
There is no place that was better outfitted than the Milwaukee Reps costume shop to do this. There are people who understand historical research with clothing. There are people who understand how to develop a design and to take it through a whole schematic and go through these things. And they were able to bring this level of professionalism that I don't think any of us entirely accounted for. They also pointed out the challenges very quickly about making the dresses.
They were given these two-dimensional paintings or drawings that you couldn't see what the back was. There was no indication of what the fabrics were. There was no indication of, if a dark spot was a shadow, or is it a fold, is it a pleat?
So everything that you see on display here is a work of interpretation by the Milwaukee Repertory Theater's costume department.
It wasn't enough to just copy. They wanted to be faithful to Hetty's designs.
And it really exceeded all of our expectations in terms of bringing this collection to life. And now we have this series of ensembles that are part of a larger story.
This is a way of exploring one person out of 6 million and who that person was, what talents they brought to this world, what they could have done.
But hopefully people walk away and they will have been enriched by it, and hopefully it gives them pause to think about their family, their history, and what they can do to pay honor to that moving forward.
That's this week's look into the hearts and minds of artists. I'm Carrie Saldo. Be sure to come back here to our studio next week. Arts District is a collaboration between Rocky Mountain PBS and public radio stations KUVO and KVJZ.